In this tutorial, we show how you can visualize volumetric data using Gizmo. The term volumetric data means a 3D wave where each entry is a scalar value that's assigned to a voxel in space. In this experiment, we have wave 3D, which is our volumetric data. We can take a glimpse of it here in the data browser. And we also have this m_boxy. This wave is generated using the operation image transform vol to surf on the 3D data that we have here. The reason that I'm not going through it right now is that this operation is actually time consuming, so in the interest of time I created the wave in advance. Okay, now to look at the wave, we can look at it on a layer by layer basis, and if we want to do that we can go to Analysis, Packages, Image Processing. This gives us an image menu, and then if we just display this wave as an image, double click on the image here in the data browser, we can look at this image and now go to Image Menu and add a slider, which adds a slider to the top of the window here, and as we move the slider we can scan through the different layers of this volumetric data. But this again is just a cross-section or one layer at a time, and if we want to see it in Gizmo, the approach is completely different. So I'm going to close this window, and I'm not saving anything, and I'm going to go to Windows menu, New, 3D Plots, and choose Other. This opens for me a blank Gizmo window and the Gizmo Info window. In the Gizmo Info window, I'm going to start by appending a new object, and the object that I'll append is going to be a surface object. I'm going to name it as head. The data type in this case is disjoint quad wave. That's the wave that we created with the image transform operation. And here we have it already selected for us, m_box1. I'm going to assign to it a constant color. Both front and back are going to be given some gray colors. And I'm going to give it an alpha here of 0.25. Forget about the alpha at this point. It will only come into play a bit later. So I clicked OK, and now I have a surface object called head here. If I drag it and drop it on the display list, I get an object here that may not appear like much at this stage. What I'm going to do next is, just to help visualize this, I'm going to append a axis object, and I'm not going to do anything. I just said OK just to get the default axis object. It gives me a plain box around the object. I right click in the center of the Gizmo 0 window and I choose Show Axis Cue. This is just to give myself better orientation around the data. Okay, so at this point we can't really see very much. In order to take advantage of the alpha that I assigned earlier, I'm going to create transparency by going to the attributes list, and I'm going to choose append new attribute, and I'm going to choose a blend function here. The blend function is going to have a source, which is source alpha, and a destination, which is 1 minus source alpha. I'm going to say OK here. I'll go now to the display list, and I will add an enable to enable blending function. So enable blend, that's the default. And I'm going to move that up to the top, and then drag the blend function following the enable. This gives us some transparency, and we can start seeing something about this head. This is nothing more than a surface that was generated in the image transform operation and appears here as a bunch of quads that have some assigned transparency. Okay, at this point what I'd like to do is I'd like to add orthogonal slices through the data. To do that, I'm going to go to Gizmo menu, and in Gizmo menu I'm going to choose 3D Slicer. This gives me the 3D Slicer panel, and in the 3D Slicer panel I'm going to choose the source wave as wave 3D, and the first thing that I'll do is I'll create an X slice. It's going to start at plane 0. I'm going to move it anyway, so it doesn't matter much. The base name is going to be, call it slice, and I'll just say append. And at this point it appended the slice that is perpendicular to the x-axis. Okay. To control the slice, I'll move to the slice control in the panel, and I'll choose here in the current slice, I'll choose slice 0. I'll give it a yellow hot color table, and I can start scanning it through the data. Now, if you notice, in the Gizmo 0 info window, slice 0 appears after the head. Okay? Well, I'm going to drag that and put it above. So now you can actually see the slice through the surface that represents the exterior of the head. If you want to darken up or make that surface a bit more opaque, we can double click on the head object, come over here and change the alpha from 0.25 to 0.5. So as you can see now, the head is not as transparent. Okay, we changed the alpha, but you can see through it to see the slice. Okay, let's add another slice that is going to be perpendicular to this one. So this time we're going to choose a slice perpendicular to the y-axis, and I'm going to just say append the slice, and I'm going to choose that slice here. This is going to be slice 1. I'm going to give it the same color table, and I'm just going to move it across. Again, this slice appears in the display list below the head object. So if I just drag it to be above the head object, we'll get the right transparency sequence. So now we can see the slices through the head object, and again we can play with the transparency or translucency of the head object to see it better, or to see the internal slices better. Similar to that, you can add another orthogonal slice, and let's pick one now that's going to be perpendicular to the z-axis. And again, I'll say append the slice, and I'll choose this slice again, and I'll give it, well, this time I'll give it a rainbow color table. And again, we'll have to move the slice to be above the head in order to see anything. So at this point, if we just decide where we want to position it, we can see that slice, and we can see how the different slices coming together. So in this example, we showed various ways of looking at the data. One is using the image transform operation to generate a surface from the volume. The second one is using orthogonal slices from the data using the Gizmo slicer. And hopefully with any combination of these you can generate a sufficiently informative view of the data. And this concludes this tutorial.